one word, just one word, and I'm going to hold you to that. What is your professional style?
Analytical.
We're here in Midtown Manhattan with Jennifer Fan, who's the founder and chief investment officer of Arbalete Capital, which is a hedge fund. I didn't know what an arbalete was. Can you explain what that is?
So an arbalete is a kind of archaic term for a crossbow.
And why did you choose that name?
Well, you'd be surprised how many hedge fund names are already taken.
And you trade mainly energy and energy equities here?
Oh, I trade only commodities. So
Only
I trade,
commodities.
Energy futures, swaps, derivatives, as well as agricultural commodities, as well as metals and livestock.
And you got out of, you graduated from college pretty young. You were 19 and you went to school at NYU.
Right.
And what did you study when you were at NYU?
So I really liked NYU. I found the experience there really valuable because of the breadth of the classes that I could take. So I spent most of my time taking finance, and my majors were in finance and statistics, but I spent a lot of time kind of exploring different fields, both in kind of mathematics and physics, as well as, more traditional things.
And you got out and you went directly to Wall Street then at age 19.
Yeah, so I actually got my first job, which was my internship between junior and senior years, the year before I graduated, and that was at Bank of America in the energy derivatives group. And I just got hooked on trading commodities at that time. And when I graduated, I just came back.
And then you went to Bank of America and then on to, was it Morgan Stanley?
Morgan Stanley, yeah.
And so by the time you were in your late 20s, you were already like a decade-long veteran of Wall Street.
I am still in my late 20s.
But you have massive experience that usually takes people significantly, they're significantly older when they have this much experience.
Yeah, I think that experience is one thing that's incredibly important in our business when it comes to kind of seeing a lot of different market cycles. And I think particularly in commodities, the decade between the early 2000s and today has been a decade of tremendous change. From kind of the way that commodities trading used to be kind of in the 80s and 90s, through the rise of kind of the BRIC countries through the 2000s to the rise of electronic trading. I mean, when I started, we were still, writing out manual tickets, and today we're using algorithms for all of our trades. And so things have changed a tremendous amount even in the short time that I've been around.
And then you eventually left Morgan Stanley, went to another hedge fund in Connecticut, and then you decided, and that didn't last all that long, and then you decided to go on your own. Now, was that a little bit of a scary decision?
I've spent a lot of my career, people who spend their career trading, it's a very individualistic thing in a lot of ways. And I've always kind of enjoyed working on a big desk and having the camaraderie of kind of fellow traders and fellow portfolio managers. So that part of it was, a little bit different, but I think that a lot of the colleagues that I've met along the way are still kind of my contacts today. So I think that it's important to kind of work with a lot of people and have a lot of, acquaintances out on the street. So
you were able to raise a pretty substantial amount of money. According to a published report, one of the Euromoney publications, it was $650 million, which is substantial. How hard was that to raise?
Well, I think that the important thing when it comes to raising money is to not actually get too big. And that's the reason we limited our raise. I think that what's important is to also work with really high quality, long-term, smart investors, which we're lucky enough to partner with. So to me, it's less about quantity than quality.
And if you could describe sort of for the man on the street, not the man on Wall Street, the man maybe not on Main Street, but some street between those two, what is sort of the strategy that your hedge fund uses to trade?
So I trade relative value commodities. And I think that relative value is a concept in commodities that's really unique to our space. I think that in something like equities, you could trade two stocks that are in the same kind of sector, but at the end of the day, they're two separate companies and there's no real causal relationship to one another. I think the great thing about commodities is that you can trade something like European gasoline versus New York Harbor gasoline. And not only are they similar products and you can make money trading one versus the other, but there's actually a fungible physical relationship at a certain price, which actually gives you in commodities causal relationships both across kind of the forward curve as well as between different commodities that actually have true causation rather than merely correlation.
We really only have time for one more question. So if you were to give somebody who was just coming out of school advice about making it on Wall Street, and, what would that advice be?
I think I would probably really be the wrong person to ask, because I think that through my career I've really benefited from a lot of finding the right spot, and I think that a lot of it is luck. For example, when I first went to Bank of America for that summer, I was offered a spot on mortgage-backed securities or on commodities. So at the time, commodities was hugely unpopular. Nobody wanted to do it. The office was not as nice as the mortgage-backed securities office, but I didn't necessarily understand what they did. It wasn't really that intuitive to me, while commodities was always incredibly kind of intuitive, because that's how these kind of physical processes is how we get oil in our tanks every day, right? So I think that what's important is finding a desk where you have, you know, a great mentor and people that are, you know, are willing to kind of show kind of a younger person the ropes and give a lot of experience to a young person. So I was very lucky early in my career to work with a lot of people who are willing to put a lot of faith and to give a lot of risk to a person who was younger than others.